Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into the incredible architecture of human respiration. And hey, we're not just talking about the basic act of breathing here. We're exploring a highly efficient, continuously operating, built-in air delivery network. Seriously, its core mission is an absolute marvel of biological engineering. It's simultaneously supplying your cells with the vital oxygen they desperately need for energy, while running this massive, non-stop waste management protocol to expel carbon dioxide. The structures pulling off this rapid gas exchange, they are literally an architectural masterpiece.
Okay, let's dive into this. Look at that number, 20,000. It is wild to think that we go through about 20,000 breaths every single day, completely automatically, without even thinking about it. I mean, whether you're reading, sleeping, or right in the middle of a sentence, this rhythmic mechanism just runs. But the actual physics of how that invisible ambient air gets drawn deep into our bodies to power cellular respiration, well, that's where things get really fascinating.
So tracing this route starts at your primary intake, the nose. But, rather than just being a simple opening in your face, your nose functions as a literal built-in filter. We all know about those tiny hairs and the sticky mucus lining the nasal cavity, right? Well, they act like a high-tech security checkpoint. They trap dirt, dust, and germs, while instantly warming and moistening that incoming air so it's perfectly primed for your delicate internal environment.
Once we're past that initial climate control checkpoint, the air is basically accelerated on a fast-paced journey down the throat. It sweeps from the nasal cavity straight into the pharynx, drops down through the larynx, and heads right into the trachea. It's a precisely orchestrated sequence, passing sequentially through these specific structural stops on the bodily highway.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the larynx, which sits right beneath the pharynx. It's this brilliant dual-purpose piece of architecture. It actually houses your vocal cords. As pressurized flowing air from the lungs rushes over these specialized folds, it forces them to vibrate. That mechanical vibration magically gives us our ability to speak and sing. It translates the exact same airflow we use to survive into everything from a whispered secret to a shouted command.
Immediately after the larynx, the airflow drops straight into the trachea, or the main windpipe. Now, from a pure engineering perspective, a flexible tube that's constantly subjected to negative suction pressure should just naturally collapse on itself, right? Well, the body's biological solution to this is incredibly clever. The trachea is physically reinforced by strong, rigid rings of cartilage. And get this, it uses the exact same tough, flexible cartilage found in human ears to ensure this vital air highway stays permanently open.
As we reach the center of the chest, the architecture takes a dramatic shift. Down here, the rigid trachea splits at the bottom of the chest, perfectly resembling a giant, upside-down tree trunk. It hits this critical fork in the road so it can support the massive volume of the lungs, neatly dividing its airflow to service the left and right sides.
That initial split creates what we call the bronchi. Think of these as the primary, heavy-duty distribution branches. With one leading directly into the right lung and the other going straight into the left, these main tubes ensured both sides get an equal, highly pressurized delivery of all that filtered, perfectly climate-controlled air.
Once inside the lungs, the branching just goes totally exponential. Those primary bronchi divide again and again and again into thousands of increasingly thinner branches called bronchioles. Looking just like tiny twigs, the purpose of this microscopic networking is to drastically maximize the internal surface area, spreading the incoming air out as widely and as thinly as physically possible. And that brings us to the grand finale of this intricately branched network, the alveoli. Located at the very end of those tiny twigs are clusters of microscopic air sacs that look exactly like little bunches of tiny balloons or grapes. This massive clustering is where sheer structural scale meets cellular function. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer efficiency of human biology at work. Inside these clusters, a simultaneous gas exchange is happening. The alveolar walls are super thin, so minimal that gas molecules can just passively diffuse right through the barrier. As fresh air inflates the sacs, oxygen effortlessly crosses the membrane right into the surrounding bloodstream. And in that exact same millisecond, the carbon dioxide carried back from your metabolizing cells diffuses out of the blood and into the alveoli, primed and ready to be expelled. Let's move to and see how this builds into the larger system, because this entire respiratory highway is completely useless without a motor. Your lungs are purely passive tissue. They don't have any skeletal muscle, which means they absolutely cannot inflate themselves. To move this massive volume of air, the system relies entirely on a powerful, dome-shaped muscle located right beneath your ribcage, the diaphragm. The physics of the diaphragm are ingeniously simple. When you inhale, this dome contracts and pulls firmly downward. That mechanical action creates a vacuum that forcefully sucks ambient air right down your trachea. And to exhale, the diaphragm simply relaxes upward into its natural dome shape, instantly compressing the lungs to squeeze that waste air out exactly like a deflating balloon. So, the crucial point is that this unsung dome-shaped engine room is the sole mechanical driver of respiration. It contracts downward to pull oxygen in and relaxes upward to squeeze carbon dioxide out. Without the relentless, rhythmic pumping of this single muscle, those 20,000 daily breaths we talked about earlier would instantly come to a halt.
We've mapped out the physical mechanics today, but I want you to consider what happens when you run fast or play sports. Your body's cellular demand for energy spikes instantly. Without a single conscious thought, your brain senses the shifting blood chemistry and automatically hijacks this entire autopilot system. It commands the diaphragm to pump faster, the airways to dilate, and the gas exchange to drastically accelerate. How exactly our brain seamlessly commands this entire system to work harder on demand is a spectacular engineering mystery all its own. Thanks for joining me for this explainer today, and keep marveling at the incredible machinery within you.